Hello and welcome to the Womb Centered Healing Podcast. I'm Sama Morningstar and I have Alaya with me here. Thank you so much for joining me. We are coming on here to talk with you today about ancestral healing. I got to connect with Alaya a little bit and was very intrigued about the ancestral healing work that she's doing and invited her onto the podcast. So please introduce yourself, Alaya, and share with us a little bit more about the ancestral healing work you've been involved in.
Okay. So, hello, and thank you for the invitation, Sama. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, yes, my name is Alaya Dannu, and the kind of work that I am deeply involved in, it's a restoration of a matrilineal tradition. It's deeply ancestral. All of the information that I know about it um, comes through ancestral memory, through the blood, pretty much. Um, so what I'm really working on right now, it's the reestablishment of particular matrilineal practices, a very particular matrilineal tradition that existed thousands upon thousands of years ago in the Kush Empire. So when we say Kush, we think about Northeast Africa only, when in truth, if we go further back in time, or if we look at the Puranas, if we consider the Puranas, the Kush Empire extended through the Indus Valley into India as well. And I only know of this connection because of the ancestral dreams. Um, and so the container for all of this is called the Temple of Mut, House of Sybil. So it is a temple or temple practices from the very distant past that's reemerging. And the core of the work is to reconnect to your origins, pretty much. Understand who you are, understand your true nature, and understand the importance of those that came before you and what wisdom they have to offer to help you now into a better tomorrow.
Wow, beautiful. And so this temple of Mut, Mut sounds like an Egyptian goddess name. Is that right?
That is correct. So Mut is a mother goddess, originally a virgin mother goddess, and don't get hung up on the word virgin, but it's the aspect of the cosmic mother, or the primordial mother, where she was self-created, pretty much. So she came into being from within herself, and then brought forth the rest of her progeny, the deities that everyone has come to be familiar with. And her name, Mutz, actually translates to mother. So, when that was revealed to me not too long ago, I was kind of like, oh, well, it makes sense, the primordial mother. But yes, if you look her up, you have two different origin stories. Well, you have the same origin story, but they don't highlight her in her singular aspect. They highlight her as the consort or the wife of Amun and the mother of Khonsu, which is a moon deity. So you have two creator deities, pretty much self-created, really, in one of the many ancient Egyptian creation stories.
Mm-hmm. So, and I just want to go back to what you said about not getting hung up by the word virgin, just to mention that in many translations of ancient languages, there, including Hebrew, and I'm imagining including the languages that these traditions used at that time, which were often the writings we have from those times are cuneiform, right? And so how do you which is pictographs, right? Pictures that are depicting different words or concepts. And so translating that into our English language often adds a whole bunch of interpretations to it. So for example, I know that the word for virgin in original Hebrew did not mean a woman who had not had sexual intercourse.
Right.
What it meant was an unmarried woman, a woman who was not beholden to any man. But that didn't mean she didn't have sexual intercourse. And only because of our modern day sexually suppressive traditions, interpreting those translations, now we have this idea that there was the Virgin Mother Mary who had somehow had become pregnant without having sex with a man, and so therefore it must have been divine conception or something like that. But if you go back and look at what the translation really might have meant, she just was unwed. She was an unmarried woman and she was pregnant. Didn't mean she didn't have sex. And so, and I could go on and on more about that because I've looked into this quite a bit in that tradition. So I'm imagining that when you say don't get hung up on the word virgin, that there's a similar kind of thing, that there was probably a cuneiform symbol or that was interpreted to mean virgin in our definition today, meaning never having had sex, but really what it meant was a sovereign queen unto herself who, had her own consorts, and then that didn't really fit in the patriarchal idea of what should be true, and so then it got interpreted and retold to say, oh no, she was really married to this guy over here, right? And that's why she was having children, right? Who is the father, right? We're changing the matrilineal story to a patriarchal story of saying, oh, well, there must have been a father and he was the one that, right? And so I'm curious more about that, but also I'm really curious about how you were introduced to these traditions and these practices.
Well, growing up, my mother was not a part of any religion or tradition. However, she felt it important that we understood where we came from, who our ancestors were, and that we came to understand our destiny, because she wanted us to do what we came here for. Those were her beliefs. So we didn't follow any one tradition. She integrated aspects of like the Native American tradition of honoring the earth and respecting the earth. She held on to that. She said, you must, respect nature. If you want to pick a flower, you ask. If you want to pick a leaf, you ask and say thank you. Before you go into woods, you ask. But that was her mindset. And she also really honored the Yoruba tradition of Nigeria, Ifa. What she loved about it is the divination practice, which was, which revealed your destiny and your path. She never arranged for it to happen for a divination to happen while we were children, but she had her mentor, one of the priests that she would speak to, and she would just say, okay, when you get old enough, you have this reading, but listen to your dreams. If you have dreams that you don't understand, you can speak to this person who help us come to understand it. So for her, that's how I was introduced. I guess I would have. She would say, I would have these dreams and draw pictures and explain them to her. when I was a small child. I was, really? She goes, yeah. She was, or when I would burn a candle to Oshun, you'd be dancing in front of it, and I'd ask you, what are you doing? And you would tell me, Oshun wants me to dance. Really? So dream work is really how I was introduced to it. So for me, it was through dreams first, and then my mother explaining why they were important. And up to this point, I still have guidance through my dreams. But my mother, she said that she created and taught us and honored these practices so that we can have a strong spiritual foundation. And she also said, when you turn 18, you're at liberty to choose, whatever it is you want to explore. with her expressive wish not to go towards the Abrahamic traditions.
The Abrahamic, meaning from the lineage of Abraham.
Yeah, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, for us to not go that route. And she said, but if you do, I respect your choice. Um, because she didn't feel that those traditions honored, you know, anything about women, and, you know, anything about women's nature, women's essence. She even had her reservations about Ifa because of, you know, some some priest houses aren't very supportive of growth within women, and I've encountered that actually.
Mm.
So that's where it's come from, really through dreaming and mother saying, honor it, listen to it, and because your ancestors are speaking to you, and every night we have to pray to them. So that is the foundation, pretty much, that came.
Wow. So was it, I was a little bit confused about something you shared earlier about lighting a candle for Oshun and dancing. Was that you lighting the candle and dancing, or your mother?
So my mother would have a candle lit
Uh,
on her altar, and then as a child, I'd go towards it and dance.
and you would go towards the candle and dance, and she would ask you,
What are you doing?
and you would say, Ocean told
Oh,
me to dance.
dance. Yeah.
So that's what I wondered, if that was you receiving already as a young child, having a sense of communication with the deities and with the spiritual ideas and concepts and archetypes that your mother was sharing with you. And so when did you start praying to the ancestors on your own? Or, you know, like, did your mother guide you with that at first, and then did you begin to have your own conversations?
But yes, she had a prayer written on a piece of paper next to our beds, and every night we would go to this prayer and pray, and sit in silence for a bit, and then go to sleep.
Mhm.
So that just carried on even into university. You know, like if there was only one prayer that I would say, it would be to my ancestors. However, when I got to my third year of my undergrad studies, that's when the dreams and waking experiences and visions was a bit more intense. And I think because I was away from home, in my own little space, and you know, that self-discovery stage, that the more traditional view, not traditional, in my dreams, when my ancestors would reveal themselves, they would look like me. But as I moved away, different image different images of people would come forward, and so from that, my relationship started to shift. It was a bit more me actively, you know, traveling, shamanic journeying actively to find, you know, where are you from, or what realm are you in, or where is this, can I go here, can I go there, you know. um,
And had you had those kinds of experiences as a younger child, with your mother supporting you? Like, you'd say the prayer and you'd have the quiet time, and then had you seen or had visions of ancestors prior to this?
um, Bits and pieces that I honestly can recall. And you know, she would say, well, those are your ancestors speaking to you. Um, but I mean, that's the earliest memory that I have as a child. And then only after writing them down in high school did, you know, the experiences increase, you know, around deaths in the family of, you know, from our elders. The experiences would, you know, grow and grow, because I'd be the only one open, completely open, to where they would come to me and I deliver the messages, you know, as a teenager. So
Wow. Okay. And then, so then in college, this self-discovery period you were talking about, then it really strengthened, where you started um, seeing and meeting and conversing and journeying with ancestors. And did you get any support with people experienced with these practices at all? Did you ever need support? I mean, I'm hoping, because sometimes there can be ancestors that aren't so friendly and that have things to share, or that have energies that aren't so beneficial, and so it's nice to have someone. I imagine you could have always talked to your mom, but I'm curious if you have ever had any experiences where you're like, whoa, I need some support with this.
I've had my mother 95% of the time be supportive. And then, the other 5%, it would be between, an Ifa priest that was supportive, one that wasn't, and, pushing that person away before it became a toxic, mentorship. And there was like an online spiritual community forum that I was a part of. And where I would share some experiences and would have some shared experiences. So I haven't run into any negative, negative spirits or entities. I think because, with having all of that caution from my mother, that support from my mother, knowing that, if I needed help, I can call out to her and she'd show up, or a spiritual guardian would always be there. And I think that's what was important. I had these non-corporeal guardians, because there would be some places where I'd start to peek into and I'd just be pulled away from it. Or this big voice would say, you can't go there, and it would wake me up out of sleep. I've been fortunate with that, but yes, there are things and places that one should not venture.
Right. And so, and your mom sort of taught you and guided you about that, like how to make sure you have a good guardian with you. These are your guardians. That happened because your guardian was taking care of you, and perhaps you don't need to go back to that place and like that. So she explained all that as you were growing up. Powerful initiation, I don't know if you're aware of how unique that is. It seems fairly unique. I mean, do you know of any other young women who grew up with a mom who trained them in that? I mean, perhaps you've met some others in these traditions, but I
haven't run into many. I really haven't, because most of the women that I've met in my journeys, my travels, have not had a good relationship with their mothers.
Right. So that feels like a very unique treasure. I just want to name that and honor that and bless that for you. And really appreciate that, and appreciate your mother for the clarity that she had. Maybe I'll get to interview her someday.
You really should. I'll mention it to her.
Okay, cool.
I keep telling her, you need to write about these experiences you're having. She would say, well, who would read it? I'm like, Mom, there are plenty of women your age in your part of life that need to be validated, that need to hear from another woman your age, because it's important. I will tell her. And then
because I have a gazillion questions for her, I can tell you right now. Right? How did she know to do this? How did she know to say to her children, How many siblings do you have?
From her, and I love to say this, in my mother's house, from her womb, there's 4 of us together, 3 girls, 1 boy, and I'm the eldest.
Okay. Yeah, because that's a powerful thing to say to your children. At 18, you're free to explore any spiritual lineage that you choose. I just would suggest that you stay away from these particular lineages because they don't support women. That's powerful. I mean, there's who else who's mothered a young woman like yourself in that? I'm imagining she's, I don't know how old your mom is, but but she's in a certain demographic, a certain, you know, uh, generational demographic. That is a powerful statement to be making in that generational demographic to your children at that time. I imagine she did, I mean, did she have a circle of other women that she practiced with that
Oh,
supported those choices?
she's known in, you know, like amongst her her cousins and you know, family, that she's more like the black sheep of the family,
Yeah.
because she herself didn't have a good relationship with her mom. So she said that's been one of her goals, to make sure that she has a good relationship. She didn't make sure her children had what she didn't have
Mm-hmm.
with regards to relationships,
Mm-hmm.
especially with her mom. So she was very, very involved.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the big motivation a lot of times? Want to give the children what you didn't have. So
Yes.
good for her. I hope that she agrees to come on the podcast. I'd love to talk with her. Um, so so now you said you had, you know, there's some traditional, you had a mentor that you moved away from, you had maybe another mentor that was more supportive. Are you working with any mentors now? And are they, is it just your ancestors now? You've developed your ability, you have the support of your mother, and you've developed your awareness of how to take care of yourself in these realms, and now you're just being guided by the ancestors. Is that right?
For the most part, yes. My ancestors, they've always been there, and of course, I've had to look to, you know, mentors for some guidance, because you know, you can feel like if you don't have someone to help you understand what's a bit of what's coming through, you can either let it go to your head
Mm-hmm.
and it does more damage than good, or you can miss out on the teaching, which of course does the same.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, now it's been just the ancestral, you know, ancestral deities, the ancestral, you know, the human ancestors as well, that descend from that. Um, but it's been mostly them, and little points along the way there would be, you know, a priest or priestess of one tradition or another that would do a specific practice that I've had to pay attention to, because I would need to know how to do it. So that's how I was taught, just meeting these people along the way, having some clarity about what I was going through, about what my family was going through, seeing how they're doing their practice and understanding, oh, I'm going to have to do this sometime in the future. Let me take notes. And then once I know that I get it, that person would be cut from my life. So that's how things have progressed.
So you're really following the footsteps of that sovereign queen Mut, right? Really having that your own guided pathway with assistance along the way when needed. So I'm also curious, do you use herbs much in your practices, whether smudging or herbal nutrition, or I know that we've talked about steaming a little bit. I'm curious about how you see your herb use supporting this ancestral healing work that you're doing.
I see it more as, well, I mean, like they're the ones showing me and telling me, use this flower, use this plant, use sage, use Palo Santo, get it from here, don't get it from there. Um, so yes, so through their knowledge, it's been connecting to the essence of these, you know, medicines, these herbs, these plants, and these flowers, um, so that they can be used properly, so that they can be, you know, to the best of their abilities, and help enhance the space, or enhance a journey, or a ritual. So, you know, a big one is rose, um, and frankincense resin, sage, and palo santo. A lot of plants that, you know, you can get from the grocery store, that I recommend you just grow, but a lot of herbs that are easy to, you know, to grow in the kitchen. Um, are ones that I've had to really focus on connecting to because I've had to use them in specifically in healing in my travels for healing. So yes.
Awesome. Ah, love those herbs and love that. Well, see, I ask because I have an online course about ancestral healing with herbs, and so all the ones that you mentioned and then some, and of course growing our own and having our own relationship with those plants is what I love to encourage. So it sounds like you're right there with it too. So lovely. Let's see. So we talked earlier about a practice that you're developing, sort of bringing the ancestral component into the practice of soul collage. I would love to hear your story about how you discovered soul collage, how it came into your practice, what it gave you, and why you felt it was so important uh, to develop this sort of your version of it that included this ancestral connection.
Sure. Um, I encountered soul collage 9 years ago. It was after I finished teaching English in South Korea. Came back with a bonus, end of contract bonus, and didn't know what to do. Like, should I stay, in a home that wasn't really conducive to where I was spiritually, or take it and go to the West Coast somewhere? So I decided to do that. And before I left, there was a training in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Never been. And I said, you know what? Why not? It's not an expensive weekend. Sounds like a lovely place to be, out and see the plains and the structures in the distance. Sure. And so I was trained by Millie Dillard, and um, it opened up doors, realms. Like, it just increased my creative flow and just creativity in general, and my connection to all of that inner knowing that needed a voice, that needed to be expressed, where writing couldn't accomplish. Um, so I just began creating cards. Of course, So Collage has these specific committees where these are forces that interact with our growth and our development that come from within us, and around us. But there, as I started to develop the cards, something more started to come through. And this was, a year, 2 years, 3 years after I was trained, and doing workshops. It just started to feel and look different. Not so collage, but something else, with so collage at its foundation. Um, and so recently, after I returned from a 3-year pilgrimage across 3 different continents, um, I received an email from a woman that supervises some hospitals in the city, in Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and the Bronx. And she wanted me to be a part of a grant project, which brought So Collage to nurses. And at first I thought it would be a good idea. I could, jump back into offering workshops, but here's my dry run. But where I'm located currently in Long Island is too far to get to Queens every day or 3 days a week, So when I started looking at the materials I had and the cards I had, and I started to just go through the outline, my ancestors just descended like a tornado, and just pushed me to create an aspect of So Collage called Heritage Soul. And it's pretty much tapping into the soul of your heritage through an intuitive collage process. So it's using So Collage as the foundation. However, the goal is to give voice to your ancestral memory through images and learning how to speak through that. It's never from a mental way of interpreting. It's truly allowing what the energy within your blood is saying through these images and integrating those messages.
Mm, gorgeous. Boy, I really want to hear more about that and support your development of this program. So um, those of you who are listening, don't be surprised if we hear more from Alaya and you see more happening around this heritage soul work because I'm very intrigued and can't wait to hear how it develops. So if someone wants to get in touch with you and learn more about you, and we could have a part 2 of this podcast because we didn't even start talking about your 3-year pilgrimage. We could have a whole podcast just about that. But if someone wants to reach out to you and get connected, how might they do so?
Well, you can email me at the Temple of Mut, that's one full word, at gmail.com. And then there is a Facebook page for that, the Temple of Mut. You can Google it or search it into Facebook, and that would be a way to reach me via email and keep an eye out for updates on the page.
Right on. So Mut is spelled M-U-T, correct?
That's right.
The Temple of Mut. All right. And those of you who are listening, if you want to learn more about the Womb-Centered Healing Temple, you can go to wombcenteredhealing.com and learn about the membership site. And I look forward to connecting with you more soon. That's all for now. Take good care.